America. I am Joe with Siser. As my first lesson, every time I do these classes, for those that have seen my previous classes, you know my lesson number one is how to properly pronounce Caesar. So say it with me, Caesar. That's right. So congratulations, you are walking away with something. Keep saying hello and where are you watching from? I see a ton of different spots: New Jersey, Illinois, Long Island, Missouri. I saw Michigan in there. What's happening, Michigan? Represent. Wyoming. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much. What do you guys think of my shirt? First and foremost, a mighty fine Galentine. That's right. I was dared to wear this shirt. I was wondering if I could pull it off. You let me know what you think of it. It is actually 4 Siser heat transfer vinyls layered directly on top of one another. Mix and medias, which is exactly what I'm going to be showing you today in this class. So in case you missed last week, I had another fun Valentine's project for you. In case you missed that, we did a float frame, and that was using the Siser Easy PSV, which is our pressure sensitive vinyl. You can definitely check out that class. There's the hashtag replay on the Michaels YouTube channel, as well as that class was streaming on the Michaels Facebook page. So make sure you check that out to see how we did that. And while I'm going along today, though, very important, make sure if you have any questions while we're here live to ask them. So Stacy is going to chime in and cut me off if you need anything answered. I'm also here with my friend Elise, is hanging out with me, running the cameras and all the movie magic behind. So any questions, we are going to make sure that those get answered. So what we're going to be doing today, a question we get all the time is, how can you mix Siser heat transfer vinyls? So in case you haven't seen them at your local Michaels store or the Michaels online, this is an example of what some of our Siser heat transfer vinyl rolls look like. So they're going to be set up like this. They're going to have a little tech sheet wrapped around them. And you're going to cut them in reverse on your vinyl cutter. But the one thing people ask about is mixing medias together. So what I'm going to show you today on this design is actually 5 different Siser heat transfer vinyls, 4 of which are layered on one heat transfer vinyl. So I'm going to go over that. We're going to do the application. Again, please feel free to ask any questions along the way. So I already have my cut pieces of Siser heat transfer vinyl good to go. So today, the products I'm going to be using are our Easy Weed Stretch Black, which I'll get to in a second on that. I'm going to be using our red Easy Weed Electric, our red Sparkle heat transfer vinyl, and our red Glitter heat transfer vinyl, and lastly, our red Holographic. So I figured I would definitely use reds for the theme for Valentine's or Galentine's, because I kind of learned about that too. So Galentine's is on the 13th, so actually tomorrow on Saturday. So if you're going to party with your girls, you can rock something like this or the design we're using today. And then, of course, on Valentine's, you can also do the exact same thing. Have fun. It's a week full of crafting. Hopefully, it's not going to be too cold for everyone in the South, but as Stacy had mentioned before you guys got on, I heard Texas is going to be getting a little cold this weekend. So good luck. Stay warm. Okay, so I'm going to be pressing on just a regular 100% cotton t-shirt. Everything I'm showing you in this video is available at Michaels. This is just a 100% cotton t-shirt. Now, what I want to explain before we get going about the Siser Easy Weed Stretch. I know we have gotten a lot of tech calls on this product just by which side you cut on. So this is an example of the Siser Easy Weed Stretch Mega Roll, which is a new addition at Michaels. So it's just a larger amount of the product. But I want to show you guys unwrapping this to see which side you need to cut on correctly. Because if you're used to regular Easy Weed, there is a difference in the finish and how it all works. But what's deceiving is kind of that carrier sheet. So I want to show you, and you can see it on here, when you unwrap it, you're going to get kind of a, now hang on to these tech sheets because this is going to have some information for you if you're not used to it. So you can set those aside. Now, the one thing is the Easy Weed Stretch has a frosted carrier. So it's a little bit different. Do you see what I have here? This is what you might see on the outside of the roll. So what you need to make sure when you set this up on your vinyl cutter, this frosted side is not what you're cutting on. You're actually cutting on this side. So I know we say to look for the dollar side when it comes to any of our Easy Weed and not cut on the shiny side, but this is where it's very important. If you see that frosted carrier on your roll of Easy Weed Stretch, lay that down on your vinyl cutter and cut in reverse on this side. I hope that answers some of the questions that you have about the Easy Weed Stretch. This is only with the Siser Easy Weed Stretch. If you're using our Easy Weed or our glitters and all the other products, you'll know what side you need to cut down on. But this one, we seem to keep getting tech calls, so I just wanted to make sure we nipped any of that right away. Now, again, I am cutting 5 different Siser heat transfer vinyl products. So if you ever need to, and if we could switch to cameras, I want to just plug our Siser Siser app. So here is our Siser app that you can download for free at your App Store or Google Play. But here, hopefully I can move in a little bit and see it up in the corner. You can pick the media you want to use, and we have cutting instructions right here. So if you were going to any of our products, Easy Weed Stretch, can you see that? Hopefully you can see that. So right there, if you go into our app, you can see for your Cricut or your Silhouette, you can see the ballpark area that you want to be set when you are cutting any of our heat transfer vinyls. So first one, Easy Weed Stretch, Easy Weed Electric, Easy Weed, Sparkle, Glitter, and then Holographic. Each one of them might take a little bit more of a setup. So it's very important to do a test cut. And as you can tell, this little box I have on each one of my cut pieces is a test cut. So that's going to make sure before you waste any product that your vinyl cutter is dialed in, you have a good cut, your blade, make sure it's in good condition, make sure your blade holder is cleaned and doesn't have any debris in it, but it's very important. So that app is for free. You can get it at your Google Play or your App Store. It has a ton of tools inside of it.
Hey,
so
Joe,
any questions
can you just,
so far?
Yeah, can you say the name of the app real quick, just again?
So if you just look up Siser HTV, so Siser HTV, it should pop up. It's, again, free app. You'll get all, and it also has all of our colors that we have, that Michaels carries, as well as all of our Easy PSV. We have our videos that we do application instructions for. So it's a very helpful tool if you use Siser products. Sweet.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thanks, Joe.
Absolutely. Okay, so I'm also using this awesome Siser Craft heat press. Again, exclusive at Michaels right now. If you have a home iron or if you're using the Easy Press, you can absolutely do what we're doing today. So don't be discouraged. Just make sure that you also look at that app for the application instructions. So the time, temperature, and pressure that you need. I am mixing 5 different heat transfer vinyls together. I have set my heat press in between the temperatures. So Easy Weed Electric might be is going to say 305 on your heat press Fahrenheit. And then Easy Weed Stretch and Glitter are going to say 320 degrees Fahrenheit. Instead of pressing one and then dialing between your temperatures, it's okay to split the difference if you are mixing medias. So I set my heat press to 313 degrees, and this way I don't need to toggle between the temperatures, because that's just a waste of time. So I hope that makes sense. So if you're using a home iron or an Easy Press, again, you can absolutely do that. Make sure you're working on a firm table that is flat. Don't use a plastic cover like this because you're going to melt it. But make sure that you are still applying pressure. So that is a very, very important thing, especially with our Easy Weed Stretch. Our Easy Weed Stretch needs sufficient, even, equal pressure. So you have to make sure you eat your Wheaties that morning because you're going to have to put down some pressure when you're pressing. Very important. So we're gonna do this on the Craft heat press, and the Craft heat press actually has a pressure knob on it. So what we're gonna do to gauge our pressure is I'm gonna put my blank garment on there. And this is what you wanna do first, because I'm using a cotton t-shirt. So if you were doing a project with a sweater or a hoodie or something like that, it's gonna be a thicker product. So when I close this, it's gonna be different if I was using this t-shirt versus a hoodie. So on here, I just wanna make sure that I need to put a little bit of force down, and that right there, I can tell is at a medium pressure. There isn't a gauge, there isn't a way for you to really tell on this press, but you need to make sure that you do still have to put a little pressure down to close it all the way. This way, I know that I'm at a medium pressure. Any questions on that? Sweet. Okay, so the next step is gonna be weeding away your excess. Another advantage of having a Craft heat press by your side while it's on, this is only 9 inches by 12 inches, if anyone wanted to know the dimensions of that. This is your heating element, so do not touch that when this is on. But this lower platen is just kind of a pillow, a cushion. It helps kind of achieve the even pressure it needs if you have anything that might be uneven on your garment. But you can also use this when you are weeding any of the Siser Easy Weed family. So very important to remember that. Easy Weed family is what I'm gonna say. You can use this to speed up your weeding process. Because how many in here enjoy weeding? I know there's a lot of you out there, but I am one that likes to speed up the weeding process. So what I like to do is what we call the heat press trick, which is while this is on, all you do is close that for a few seconds. That's gonna warm up that lower platen. And now I can take my Easy Weed stretch, and be careful when you're under it, but when I take my Easy Weed stretch, I can weed out my excess material a lot faster. Because what that's doing is it's warming up the material, causing it to release a lot nicer from the carrier sheet. But this is very important to make sure you have a good cut, because as you can tell, even if something isn't cut correctly, it might lift up. It doesn't mean that it's ruined, but you want to make sure that that's a proper cut all the way around. Okay.
So while you're doing,
oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry. So while you're doing that, we got some comments here. Jessica says she actually loves the satisfaction of weeding, except for white because it's blinding. Because
of what?
Because it's blinding. Because it's so
blinding?
bright. Yes. And then she also asked, is 5 the most types of vinyl that you've mixed at one time?
No. And the way I'm going to do it today, again, it's 5 vinyls that I'm using. But it's really, I'm layering 4 different vinyls on top of one. So for example, what's on my shirt right now, which is kind of hard to see, but it is actually 4 different vinyls layered directly on top of one another. So my advice, if you are layering directly on top of one another, I wouldn't recommend going more than 4 colors. Stay between 3 and 4 colors, at least for multiple reasons. One of which is the more products you layer on top of one another, the thicker it feels. So it's going to get thicker the more products you put on. But also for washing purposes, again, if you're using a home iron or an easy press, that's where the variables might be, just because it's so important to make sure that you are at the proper temperature and pressure when you're applying. So I would try to stay within that range. Okay, so I'm gonna do the heat press trick with even our Siser Sparkle heat transfer vinyl. So this Siser Sparkle is actually a brand new addition that Michael's just brought on from Siser, and it's a smooth glitter heat transfer vinyl that actually has all the same benefits as Easy Weed, but it's called Sparkle. So it's a glittered product with the glitter is actually embedded into the material itself. So you can actually layer this product on top of one another. And it also has the pressure sensitive backing, so this way we can do the fast application, and as you just saw, the heat press trick. And this is the Easy Weed Electric. Again, I can do this And as you see, I'm barely pulling at that when it's warmed up. So it really does help release it. And you'll see while I do the applications of where that also comes into play. So does anyone have any plans for the weekend, though? Does anyone have a mighty fine Galentine's planned?
I don't see any comments about Galentine's
They don't want to give away all their tricks.
I see some people asking about knockouts, saying that that might be.
Knockouts are a great idea too. That is certainly something that I can do a class on. I have a video on our YouTube channel going over knockouts. That is where, so what I'm using today or right now is the Siser glitter. Now our regular glitter heat transfer vinyl is not a product we recommend layering on top of one another. So if you were to do a design that was only the Siser glitter with multiple colors, you wouldn't be able to layer directly on top of one another. You would do what we call the knockout method. And I'll go over that at one point. I don't want to confuse too many people if they don't know what that is. But that's a good suggestion. All right, so the last one to weed is our holographic. And our holographic is not one that you can do the heat press trick with. It's also not a product that is a hot peel. And I'll go over that when we do this application. Holographic is also one that we get a lot of questions on our tech team as well as social media about cutting correctly. So it is very important because you can see the huge difference between the back of our holographic to the front. Now the holographic has multiple layers in the actual making or the formulation of the product. So it's very important to make sure when you set up your vinyl cutter that you are cutting through all the layers, but not the carrier sheet. So you do certainly want to do some test cuts, make sure that your blade is in good condition. And once you have that, then the cutting of it is a breeze. And holographic is another product, just like what I was saying, like regular Siser glitter heat transfer vinyl. It is not a product that we recommend layering directly on top of one another. So this is another one that if you were to do the knockout method, this is where you'd want to do that. Okay. So we're going to start with the application. Now remember, my design is a lot bigger than 9 by 12. So I'm going to actually have to apply this a couple times to tack this down. So there's two ways you could go about doing this. Now I'm going to load it up the normal way. But again, if you loaded up your shirt this way, you actually have 12 inches in height and 9 inches in width. But if I load it up this way, I now have 12 inches in width and 9 inches in height. So you can utilize this heat press in two different ways. You always want to preheat your garment. I know I did that when I was testing the pressure. But when you preheat your garment, give it a couple seconds. It'll count down. And what that does is it takes out the wrinkles and moisture that is inside your garment, which is just helpful. It kind of gives you a flat surface of where you're pressing. And all you got to do is a couple seconds, and you can tell, you can feel that it gets a little bit of that moisture out of it. So it's a good idea to do that first. Make sure your pressure is good. Okay, very, very important with the Easy Weed stretch that you are working with a firm pressure. This product, the rule of thumb, and it's easy to remember, the thinner the Siser heat transfer vinyl, the more pressure you need in your application. Try to line this up the best I can from the side. How are we looking, Elise? Good?
I think it looks great, yeah.
All right. Okay, I'm going to use regular parchment paper, just regular parchment paper as my cover sheet. This is going to protect my upper platen. Now, all I'm going to do is tack that for a second and shift this up. All right, one more second. Now with Easy Weed Stretch, peel hot. So you see that? Took me 2 seconds, 2 different applications. I only tacked it down though. It's not done. I did it so now I can line up my other Siser heat transfer vinyl on top of it. And as you can tell, if you got to see that with the Siser Easy Weed Stretch, it does have a matte finish. So if you're used to regular Easy Weed kind of has a semi-gloss finish. So that's another thing to kind of determine what you want in your overall scope of the design or your transfer itself. In this case, I'm putting 4 different unique, flashy kind of Siser heat transfer vinyls on top of it. So it takes away the matte, but I think that contrast really does give that overall effect, makes it pop a little bit more. So now what you can do, I mean, depending on the designs and how many layers you have, you can cut your carrier sheets to do multiple top layers at once. But for the sake of this, I'm just going to do one at a time just to show you layering directly on top of one another. So the first one that's going down is the Siser Easy Weed Electric. And now, again, since it is an Easy Weed family, all I have to do is tack this down for 1 second and peel the carrier hot. Now, another thing that's very beneficial about the 1 second tack is this carrier sheet. And I know some of you have probably dealt with this, but if you've put a second layer on top of your bottom layer and this carrier sheet and pressed it, you probably got a couple annoying lines in your bottom layer. And that's because that impression gets left by the edge of your carrier sheet. So the 1 second tack alleviates any of that from happening. So it is very beneficial to speed that process up.
Someone wants to know, is it possible to overheat or overpress HTV?
Absolutely. And that's a great question. And that is something that you could potentially run into with home irons or even the Easy Press sometimes. So it is very important to make sure that if you're using a home iron, that you have something to kind of gauge what the temperature that is being emitted from your platen. So you can get like infrared laser thermometers that are simple like lasers that you can point at your home iron and it'll give you a readout of what that temperature that is coming off of it is. Because I know the home irons we have in here just go from 0 to 6, but what does 6 mean? You crank that all the way to the top, it could be 380 degrees. If you're pressing 380 degrees on something that's only supposed to be pressed at 305 degrees, then you could melt away the adhesive. And that's gonna obviously not allow it to stick correctly. So great question though. Okay, so the next layer I'm gonna put on here is the Siser Sparkle. Again, I'm going directly onto the Easy Weed Stretch. It is okay to repress that Easy Weed Stretch. Just grab your cover sheet, or I should say the Easy Weed Electric. Grab your cover sheet, and now with the Sparkle, same deal. I'm gonna tack that down and peel hot. So that was 2 different layers, 1 second each. Again, 1 second tack, big benefit of that. When you are working with cotton and you are doing multiple layers in multiple colors and you need your registration to line up correctly, the 1 second tack is not causing the garment itself to shrink. Because what happens when you throw your cotton garment into the dryer? It comes out small. It looks like what's on my body right now. But what is happening under the heat of the heat press is causing that to happen rapidly. So that heat is actually making the garment itself shrink up. So if you were to put those 2 layers I just did for the full 10 seconds each, it may mess up the registration for the next one. So that is important to know. The 1 second tack is very helpful when lining up your heat transfer vinyl. Okay. So we're just gonna cruise along, and the next one is the Siser Glitter. And even with our Siser Glitter, you only need to tack it for about 2 seconds.
Hey, Joe, while you're doing that, we got another question.
Okay.
So Swagata, I think is how you pronounce that name. I'm not sure. But they asked, would you recommend washing and drying the garments ahead of time?
That's a great question. Now, this is all going to be dependent on what you're doing with the finished good. Again, Siser, we're all over this industry. So I talk to people that have huge businesses that they make finished goods and they sell to people. If this is a craft that's simply for you or a loved one, you can absolutely wash it and dry it if you want to. But if you are doing this in the purpose to sell it as a business, ideally you would never wash something that you're going to give to somebody. So you kind of have to determine on whether or not it is for yourself or someone you know or for a customer. If it's for a customer, I don't recommend washing it because that's going to be on them to do that. But if you have something lying around, another question people have all the time, if you had a shirt that you had lying around in your drawer for a long time and it was blank and you wanted to decorate on it, could you? Absolutely. The only thing very, very important when it comes to washing, especially now that I'm using white, when you're washing with Siser heat transfer vinyl, do not use bleach or liquid fabric softener. So just use regular detergent. You can wash it inside out if you want to. You can wash in cold or warm water. If you want to preserve the overall finish, you can hang dry, but you can absolutely throw it in the dryer if you want to. Do not be discouraged by that. Just make sure the dryer temperature isn't overly hot. Just keep it at a normal setting and you should be completely fine with that. But that's a good question. Okay, now I'm on my final layer, but this is where it's also important to know which product you're using. Last layer for me is our holographic, but holographic from Siser is not a hot peel. It is not a 1 second tack. So I'm actually going to press this for about 5 seconds. I'm not going to do the full duration, but I'm going to press this for about 5 seconds and wait till it cools off before I peel the carrier. So again, on that Siser app, you can look, it'll tell you how long you need to press each product, whether it's a hot or cold peel, just in case you ever question it. All right, so when it comes to cold peels and you're working with the Siser Craft Press, if you're waiting for it to cool down, you don't want to keep it on the heat press. The heat press is going to retain that heat, so it's okay to take it off and just kind of bump it up against like a cooler area you're working on. Because if you let it sit underneath that heat, it's going to take a while until you're able to peel that carrier off.
Why is it we can't use liquid fabric?
Liquid fabric softener, what happens when you use that is actually coats around the actual fibers of the material. So of your actual garment. And what it does is it creates a coat around it. So in turn, what it does is eat or kind of dry out the adhesive of your heat transfer vinyl. So what that'll do is basically cause it to rebound off of your garment. So unfortunately, if you've ever used a garment, again, if you've had it in your drawer, if you've used liquid fabric softener on that garment, it's not advised to press anything on it because it kind of almost gives it a permanent coat around the garment, which just doesn't work with adhesive of our heat transfer vinyl. So it's a great question, but just try to avoid using liquid fabric softener. Fabric softener sheets, that's a question people get all the time. If you throw those in the dryer, absolutely okay. It's just the liquid fabric softener is where we've seen problems. Bleach, and then for those that dry clean, it's not advised to dry clean with heat transfer vinyl. Great questions. Okay, now I pressed all these. I basically tacked them all down. What I need to go back and do with all of these colors, now that all my layers are on there, all the carrier sheets are off, this is not finished. So if you were to take this and then throw it in the washer, all of this would potentially fall off. You still want to make sure you go back, fully cover your transfer up, and press it for the entire duration, which I have set for 15 seconds. So I'm going to do 2 presses because as you can tell, it's not going to apply the whole thing. But I'll do 15 seconds is going to bond that top layer and the bottom layer fully. And then do the same thing. And I know there's areas on my transfer right now that are going to be pressed double this right now because the way it's shifted. Is that wrong? No, it's not wrong. You can absolutely do that. That's not a problem. That's where you just want to be careful on your temperature. Because if you go a little too high, again, what is happening when that heat hits it is you're liquefying the adhesive that's on the back of your heat transfer vinyl when you get that roll. So when it liquefies and you have high heat for long duration, it inevitably causes it to evaporate. So you're just weakening. I know logically it kind of feels like the hotter it is, the longer I hold it, the better it's going to hold. It's not true. The longer you do that, the more damaging it could be for your overall transfer. So it's something to consider if you've ever had any kind of failure, any kind of problems washing. Kind of retrace your steps and think about which way you did your application. And again, all of that is on the app if you ever need, but there you go. Minus my copious amount of talking, this would have taken you a few seconds to do, I promise you. So I didn't mean it to make it look like it was longer than it needed to be, but can we change cameras? See if we get a closer shot this way. What do you guys think? So that is 5 different Siser products. As you can see with the lights hitting it, that finish, again, that's Easy Weed Electric at the top. That's our sparkle. That's our glitter. That's our holographic, all layered on top of Siser Easy Weed Stretch. Again, all colors, all these products are available at Michael's. A shirt just like this, just 100% cotton. And you can go outside of the box. You can do something absolutely different. It doesn't have to be just a garment, but, you know, because that's kind of where a lot of the fun comes into experimenting with Siser heat transfer vinyls. I know I show a lot of examples on t-shirts because it's just easier to do, but there are a lot of things at Michael's that you can decorate and customize with heat transfer vinyl, as well as, again, our other line, which is our Easy PSV line, which is our pressure-sensitive vinyl. This is just our basically sticker or decal vinyl. So a lot of stuff happening, a lot of opportunity for you this weekend for either Galentine's Day or Valentine's Day. I'd love to see what you guys do with any of the Siser products. If you haven't already, please follow us on social medias. We have a Facebook page, Instagram, we have Facebook groups, we have the app. We're here to help. We have a YouTube channel too. Of course, if you do follow us on YouTube, give us a subscribe, thumbs up on stuff. We are all about educating you and hopefully inspiring you to come up with your next fun project using Siser products. So thank you all so much. Does anyone have any last minute questions?
Yes, I saw a good one again from Swagata. She asked, how can you tell if adhesion is good? I've heard some people say that you should be able to see a fabric imprint in the HTV. Is that true?
We could make a whole class on that, but I'll give you a brief synopsis. That's not always true. Case in point are the 4 products that I just used on top of the Easy Weed Stretch are more rigid Siser heat transfer vinyls. So you're not going to be able to see the fabric of the garment peering through. Again, in a lot of cases, and I have a video on YouTube kind of going over pressing your heat transfer vinyl. That's what that usually indicates. It's very, very imperative for you to follow the instructions we tell you. I know the internets and social media have a bunch of stuff floating around. That's why we always tell you, come to us. We will definitely tell you what to look for and what to do. It is not always true that you need to see the fabric of your garment peering through. Again, in a lot of cases, when you press that much and it's going through the pores of your fabric, again, in the back of that garment is where that adhesive is liquefying. So the hotter it is, the more pushed into the garment it is, the more it has a chance to evaporate or get pushed aside. So that isn't a beneficial thing for your overall transfer or your overall design. So just as long as you follow our instructions for the full duration, the time, and importantly, can't stress it enough, pressure, even pressure, then you will have a successful press. I promise you.
And then people are loving both of the designs. Is it possible that they could get those?
Well, I think Yeah, I think Anna might even actually be on here. So another awesome Siser member here designed both this design as well as this. So she's on here and she has a cut file. Or you can find it, I think we have it in our Siser group if you aren't already. Definitely join that, the Siser support group. Again, we share a lot of our fun SVGs and all sorts of stuff. So we can get it to you for sure. Any questions?
Awesome. Thank you, Joe. Everyone loved the class. I think everyone's really excited to make the project. And for everyone that joined us today, thank you so much. This class is being recorded, so if you'd like to rewatch it and see any of Joe's great tips, you can go find it on our YouTube page or on our website. And we're going to have more awesome classes with Joe in the future, so make sure to look for those on michaels.com/classes. And if you make today's project, make sure to hashtag us. Make sure to hashtag us at hashtag Make It With Michaels, hashtag Michaels Classes. There you go. Joe's got it on his little board there. That's awesome. And all right. Well, thank you, Joe, and thank you, everyone. I hope everyone has a great day today.
Thank you so much. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend. We'll talk to you very soon.